Welcome back to Golden Black Live. Chad Q. Brown, friend of the show, so to speak. He's a friendly guy, but we're glad to have him on. Chad Q. Brown, profilebehavior.com. Does a lot of work with athletes all around the country and the world, and college athletes, professional athletes down the road. Chad, welcome back to the show. This is a opening show regular. You have been, I think this is the third year in a row we've had you on.
I'm honored, Alan. You know that, man. I love being on the show, and I really appreciate you including me. You know that.
Yeah, we have some fun conversations at lunch when we have time to do that, which is a great treat for me. Chad obviously comes from a Purdue football background. He was a walk-on in the last days of Jim Coletto, if my memory is right, and of course worked with Joe Tiller.
Yeah.
Talk about your evolution, and you've told this story a little bit into not only the football world, but how you got to profilebehavior.com, because it's quite a story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bad football player back in the day, slow wide receiver from Lebanon, Indiana. And but yeah, I was in the end of the Jim Coletto era and became a student coach my senior year, and coached college football for 10 years, came back, for a couple of those years as a young whipping boy coach for Coach Tiller right after Drew Brees of the Kyle Orton era. Yeah. But knew all those guys, have stayed close to the Purdue family forever. But the college football career taught me a lot, and then just got into corporate technology and learned about assessments and, profile. A lot of people just call us profile for short. It's been around 11 years, and we do the personality and behavioral assessments, a lot of team building stuff too. But, we use those tools not only for current teams, but it's utilized today a lot of stuff in recruiting and the transfer portal, and just helping coaches understand kids, communicate with them better, kids understanding coaches. So relationships, all the things that assessments have done in the corporate world for 75 years, the college athletic world has not. So we've been with the NFL Combine and, for a long time, the Dallas Cowboys. We've got some cool, fun clients through the years, but, still live here right outside West Lafayette, and, bleed the black and gold, and love contributing to your show. And we work with every sport at Purdue. So thanks to Mike Bobinski and all those coaches, we love contributing to try and help them get better as well.
That's really something that's come on here in the last short period of time. You've worked with Matt Painter in men's basketball for a long time, almost 10 years. But talk about the Forge Ahead campaign and how that has now brought you into the lives of all of Purdue's coaching staff, and what that has meant not only for you, but hopefully for Purdue, the outcomes and experiences for Purdue athletes.
Yeah, I always call Purdue basketball, they were like a lab for us. And I give Matt Painter credit. 11 years ago, we were starting up. He was kind of not in his favorite years record-wise for him. And he was looking for new ways to improve on people. And, and so we've been with him a long time. But when I say a lab, we have we have 5 assessments we use. A few of them we use in recruiting. And it's been powerful because we've been able to test and learn and see different things through the years. And we'll still work, with Oklahoma or LSU and other clients. Don't hold that against me, but it's been cool to grow the business. But Coach Painter, is very data driven. He's unbelievable with his relationships, but he wanted to improve there. And the Forging Ahead campaign was launched. Tim House and Mike Bobinski and the athletic department administration saw some improvement behind the scenes. That's really, we're behind the scenes. And he's, they thought it could be good for all sports. So Purdue football's been awesome this year. Purdue softball, Purdue baseball. there are a lot of people diving into it now. And, we're not helping someone necessarily win a national title, but are we inches in this world of people and, trying to gain an advantage? Yeah, I do believe we are that. And I love, kind of being that, having that role.
You've experienced opening day and getting a football team prepped from stem to stern. Ryan Walters and your opportunity to work with him and that program a little bit more. Just some of your impressions about the group, and then I'm going to ask you what we might see on the field too this year. But let's start with just Ryan and his staff and how they are to work with, and what kind of things have you been able to get done, because it's not a small number of guys you got to deal with there in getting that going.
No, and that's always a scare for coaches in football, because there are so many guys. It's like, am I going to be able to actually, use this with 120 guys. And the truth is, like, the software we have actually lets them go fast. Ryan's been awesome. He's very open. And as far as he and those staffs, I could make a joke, a lot of strong and fun personalities. That's definitely there. But he's been awesome. Like, when we worked together, we started off doing some things with the quarterbacks. That's where I always want football to start is we have so much NFL data. Look at the differences. Look how, where Hudson, we could help him be a better leader. Some things that are easy for anybody or him. Some things are hard for him when it comes to leadership. We've been able to, Ryan dove into that, and Graham and the staff, Noah Joseph, those guys have been awesome to dive into the data. And I think once they got a little bit of a feel for the quarterback stuff, we dove into the whole team. So we spent a few days there, kind of on and off. I go over a lot, just with small meetings, just to see kind of a little behind the scenes and chime in on, communication with this coach to that player, how they're utilizing it in recruiting and so on. So it's been awesome to get to know them, and man, they're driven. So we're and they've got some awesome new pieces, with a Reggie Love and those kind of players. They've really done an awesome job in the portal, in my opinion. But it's Wild West, man. Lot's going to tell us this year in college football as these teams and games unfold.
Talk about the testing as it is, and you have I believe, if I'm right, a battery of tests, but a little bit of the makeup of what you're trying to determine from the student athlete or the coach or anyone that you're dealing with in this realm. What specific things can you bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the stuff that's under the hood with a person, whether it be an employee or an athlete. It's, do they care about loyalty? Are they big in helpfulness? Are they very extroverted and fun? Do they need to be communicated with in more of a softer tone or more details or more direct? These kind of things. The one I always like is, does someone really motivated to lead? Well, coaches so many times think, this kid is our best player. They should be our leader. And that's a subjective conversation, right? But what if the kid really doesn't want to do that? What if they're more focused on being, loving the sport, but being a role player? And that may surprise you, but I've seen elite, great talented athletes not necessarily want or need to be, front and center. And so when you can show people that and talk to the athlete about that and help the coaches see those kind of things, if loyalty is a big value, a high value for the individual, but yet you want to be the old school coach and threaten them with the bench, how's that work? I mean, to me, you're hitting the wrong button. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's like, well, what if you go at a different approach? What if it's more about talking very specifically about where they stand, where their role is, making sure they understand this is a long-term game. Your tonality, your how you facilitate the conversation. It's this art that the coaches have to make their own, but they're not guessing. So you're eliminating guesswork. And that's kind of how this stuff works, is how I would say.
Yeah. And you have data-driven analysis. It's a very key thing to be able to do. All right. Men's basketball last year, maybe the greatest season in Purdue men's basketball history. Talk about, the makeup of this team. And there was so much made of what Matt Painter and company had to go through, his team had to go through after the difficulty in the NCAA tournament, the Fairleigh Dickinson loss, et cetera. Yeah. As you look back at this group, and you know a lot about them and you've worked with them in terms of that, what makeup made you think, outside of talent on the floor and a guy named Zach Edey, what made you think this team was going to get to the heights that it got to, just based on the personality traits of some of the players?
Yeah, I mean, Matt and any coach I work with, they see certain things that fit them. Yeah. Detail orientation, rule following, high basketball IQs, if we're talking about basketball. Those are things that, vary with each individual. Sometimes they're hard to vet in the recruiting process. But that team, man, not only did they have a skill set of great shooting, obviously having the best player in the country helps. But there weren't a lot of people that were individuals. There was a high team role, understanding my role. behavioral style under the hood. And I think, a lot of also what we do in programming is, I learned a long time ago, some athletes, some people in life they're nervous, maybe like a lower composure. Doesn't mean they can't play. Doesn't mean they're not successful or talented, but they can deal with things. I've seen elite like golfers or baseball pitchers struggle with confidence, but they're talented. They can still throw 90 miles an hour. We did a lot of work last year with that team to address different feelings behind the scenes. And I know that sounds unique, but what I've learned from as a gentleman we work with the New York Yankees, who's the director of mental conditioning, he's fantastic. And he's taught us a lot about one thing when it comes to those types of, things, feelings the athletes can feel. Don't hide from them. Talk about them. Address them. Kind of relish in them. And sometimes when you internalize those things, it can really, fester and build up. Does that make sense? So The talent has always been there with Purdue basketball. Zach turned into something, they thought he could, be great, but they didn't know he'd be that great. And, so they've been awesome at developing the confidence side of things, especially last year. If I had to say there were some inches that we kind of helped out with, that was kind of fun for us because obviously Braden Smith has turned into, I know a lot of people that didn't want that guy because of his height, because of his speed. I mean, our clients are some of our basketball clients. And Matt and his network knew, that how good he could be. And he's turned into, a monster. Fletcher and, he and those two in the backcourt have been amazing. So the physical talent's there, but then developing that chemistry in each individual kid has been a credit to their staff. We just work as kind of I would call a special advisory role to the individual athlete and to, Elliot Bloom and the staff and Coach Painter in areas like that. And that team last year just was so focused on their role. They were focused on their emotions. They were focused on, not individual accolades. And it's hard to do in this era because if you look at this week, I'm at two schools that both have 10 new basketball players, 10 new athletes on their basketball teams. That doesn't happen at Purdue. There's not a lot of turnover at Marquette. There's not a lot of turnover at Texas A&M. But everywhere else you go, you'd go, no, it's 50% turnover. And like the art of doing that is absolutely hard today. And I give them a lot of credit for keeping things intact, and hopefully it maintains.
How much, and certainly, and I'm just using this as an example, but Matt Painter takes a test. He knows about himself. He knows himself. But also in that recruiting game of coming up with that right person that you're trying to recruit, it does matter you've got to match match in some way or be complementary with an E of what kind of kid you're getting based on the kind of personalities your coaching staff and maybe your head man is. I mean, is that, and I know you're not sitting there consulting Matt and say, hey, but maybe Braden Smith is the perfect match for Matt Painter because of a number of personality characteristics and basketball talent. I mean, is there something to that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the word fit is a subjective word. And I heard a longtime assistant in the NBA that is a great speaker, probably 9 or 10 years ago, speak at a convention. And he was with the LA Clippers at the time. And he said, Steve Ballmer, the owner, and we obsess about fit. And he kept talking about fit. And he talked for 30 minutes about fit. And I still don't know what he was talking about. And I'm not picking on him. Yeah. I think coaches say cultures, coaches say chemistry, coaches say fit. But it's a subjective thing. Yeah. How I feel about that kid or that person, and even take it into relationship land, like who your significant other is or who you marry. It's there are many times, one of the individuals leans into more of a dominant type A direct partner because I'm more analytical and I don't like that, or I'm not that way. Or maybe I've seen compatibility work where, definitely the same styles work together. And that's the part you have to figure out with the Purdue basketball world. They love detail orientation. They love rule followers. They love guys that, it's hard to find guys in today's world that will accept a role versus individualism. And I'm not mad at teams that, are athletes that have that, because that's how they were nurtured. But I would say that fit that you talked about, the scientific approach, it's not hard. It's just taking key little data points, because my job is to make it easy for them. You've got to make it easy for coaches, because they're not going to listen to a bunch of spreadsheets and stuff like that.
They don't have time.
Yeah, they don't have time. So how do you make it easy? The software helps that. And then figuring out what they migrate to is important. But I've even been at schools where, I'll end with this, where, a coach takes a job at a Big 12 or an SEC school, and they used to be at a smaller school, and they have a fit, but due to optics and due to everyone, their athletic director wanting them to get top talent, the world of social media wanting them to get the 5-star guys, they go away from fit because they feel they're at that place where they can get, the talent will matter, and talent does matter. But, Alan, you and I have, my gray hair's gone. We have that a little bit. But I mean, I go back to the Florida State days where Chris Weinke, wasn't he was a good quarterback, but had elite talent around him. They didn't win national championships every year. And there's talented basketball teams. Yale beat Auburn this year in the NCAA tournament. Like, in basketball and in these team games, there is more to it. It matters. There's no question. Jimmys and Joes versus X's and O's matters. But figuring out how to get the right people in the right seats and the right people for the leader is very important.
NIL in the world, we have time for a couple more questions, but on, the need for, because money is in the game now more than it ever has been, at least it's out in front. How do coaches, there's certainly things you can test for. And this, again, not being critical of young men and women that want NIL opportunities and financial things are important. We never know everybody's background, but talk about that and trying to match, whether it's humility score or whether it's financial needs, how that plays into some of your testing and becomes even more relevant in today's world of college athletics.
Yeah, I haven't met anybody in our personality assessment world that doesn't like money.
Yeah,
that we have that category, but everybody likes money. And I think a data point, like a piece to the puzzle. And what happens with the athletes, and I can think of many high major big name transfers that might be wired for Purdue basketball, might fit Purdue basketball in the world of profile. But there's an agent now involved. There's, moms and dads and, AAU coaches involved, that some are great. Some definitely have a pulse on this thing and some don't. But what happens is that variable gets in the way of, the kid making the decision. Does that make sense? Yeah. And granted, these guys are young and you got to factor in all that stuff. But, NIL now is just a necessity. It's just part of it. And there are teams out there that are all in on it. And there are athletic directors and teams out there that, they're still holding on it a little bit. And you can see a separation with those kind of things. But Purdue's been amazing with the evolution of that. Because if I were to be more specific, they didn't go all in on it in the beginning, the department. They kind of were, they're good business people. They kind of watched it unfold. And Matt Painter was the same way. And then they've kind of made it their own way. Does that make sense? And if you don't like the way they do it, they're good. All due respect, maybe this isn't a fit for you. And it's hard to find coaches that can make tough decisions on really talented people. And it's never a no, or you won't work here. It's more of, hey, I get it. I understand you want to, somewhere else is a better fit for you in the financial side of things. Go make your money, just may not work here, all due respect. And I would say that's kind of the mentality that, Purdue has taken, if I were just describing it to somebody, like we're doing now. But I give them a lot of credit because, many people just, they run for the talent and they do whatever it takes, but they're being more scientific. They're trying to be more, I wouldn't say careful, I would say strategic in their decision making. And that's what we're doing with more the other sports as well, which I've had a lot of fun doing.
All right, there is a football game tomorrow, Purdue, Indiana State. You've been through that as a coach and as a player, just getting ready for game one. Now, I know Indiana State's an FCS program. Purdue is a 33-point favorite or whatever that is. But talk about, what you expect to see, but also that just getting launched into a new season. There's a lot to that, getting your feet on the ground and getting things ready to go. And Ryan Walters and company are going to be doing that tomorrow in Ross-Ade.
Yeah, I met with them a couple weeks ago, and they're excited about it. The first game of the year, and I'm going to speak not in personality land, but a decade of coaching college football and being around the NFL for a long time. First game's wild. The first game's crazy. The first game is people cramping and people forgetting their plays, and it's just a wild day because the truth is you can't really simulate game shape because you never really play a full game. You do as best you can. So it's always, to me, the first game is nerve-wracking because of that. And then game two, I think it's great. They've got the bye week before Notre Dame to where, you get some injuries, you give people time to heal. And then you go in against obviously a very historically strong opponent. And you also get time to prepare and watch a couple more of their games. So we've got a cool advantage. I'm not a gambler, but I would say, in the world of the transfer portal, I got to think that messes Vegas up a lot when you've got 30 new athletes on the team, So it'll be wild and fun, but it amazes me, and I'll say this to all the Purdue faithful, just how consistent through the years, rain or shine, winning or when we've struggled a little bit, Ross-Ade fills. It just fills up. I tell my kids that all the time, that is such a special place because people show out all the time and they love the black and gold. I'm not saying fans don't get a little frustrated at times, but they, for the most part, man, we're filling Mackey Arena, we're filling Ross-Ade, and it'll be a lot of fun, I think.
All right, Chad. Thanks so much for your time. Always enjoy it. Safe travels, and then we'll see you maybe in Ross-Ade Stadium tomorrow. We'll see you throughout the course of this year. Always interesting, and we're thankful for that as well. I want to thank WLFI and Gordon Jackson, who has been a stable for us for the last 16 years, moving on to another opportunity. We appreciate all his work. We're looking forward to working with Madison, the folks at WLFI. A reminder, too, that we will have shows each game week. So we won't have a show next week, but we will heading into that game that Chad has on his calendar like every Purdue fan does, Notre Dame, the next week as well. So thanks to our sponsor, XXX, on the hill but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. And, of course, State Farm agent, TrentIsMyAgent.com. Chad, have a great Saturday and rest of your Friday, and we appreciate you very much. And we'll look forward to next week on Gold and Black Live.
Thanks so much, Alan.